Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another live stream from the Montfort University. This one is titled UCAS Application Reminder, and we're just going to be talking about the next things that you guys need to do. Before we start into our stream today, what I want to do is just say a massive thank you for all of you guys joining us today. I understand the weather is absolutely fantastic. It's Monday morning, so I hope nobody has any Monday blues. I'm very excited myself. Love Island starting tonight, albeit it's the Aussie version, but I'll be sure to watch in. And also the Premier League is back, so what a week this is going to be. And on top of that, you've got the pleasure of listening to me for the next hour or so, talking about UCAS and all things wonderful in regards to university. So just to give you a bit of oversight about what we're going to be discussing today, the first thing that we're going to have a look at is what were our motives when choosing university? What will university sort of look like in 2020? We'll get some experiences of some recent grads, some esteemed veterans within the world of higher education, talking about their university experiences, and also post-university. And we're going to be trying to answer the question, was it actually worthwhile? And then we'll finish off with a very brief section on what you guys should be doing next. You'll be glad to know you haven't got to listen to my Brummie accent for the next hour or so. I have got an all-star cast lined up for you guys, some absolute experts. We've got someone who's crying about their tech. I'll be sure to point that out when I introduce that person, but I'm going to introduce you now to our team. So first up, we've got all things university, the wonderful Faye Shears.
Good morning, Dal. Good morning, everyone. Happy to be here this Monday morning. Could be outside in the sunshine, but never mind. I'm here with you guys.
So Faye is our designated expert on all things university. So what I want to be seeing in the comments, guys, is people @ing Faye Shears. So with your questions, @Faye Shears, and we'll get Faye to answer any questions that people have got. Is that okay with you, Faye?
Fantastic, thank you.
You sound very enthusiastic about that.
Come on, start of the week.
On the private chat, she's there messaging me saying, what an absolute... Yeah, bleep, 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 bleep.
I would never say anything like that. Far too nice.
Okay, so next up, we've got Ben, who's in a bit of a paddy this morning because he couldn't use his tech stuff. He couldn't use his pro office. He couldn't use his pro camera. He's got to be a normal simpleton, just like myself and Faye, hosting from a dodgy room somewhere in the house. Ben, are you there?
I think so. Is this thing on? I'm not sure. Can you hear me? Yeah, my laptop's currently propped up on a box of baking potatoes. Blue Moon, apparently. Very good brand of potatoes. So that's where I'm at today. Yeah. Also, Dal, I'm really upset with you to say that you were going to watch Love Island. I cannot tell you how much you've gone down in my estimations at this point.
Oh, mate, Love Island for me is my guilty pleasure every year. The only thing that's slightly disappointing that it's not the UK version, it is the Australian version. But I'm pretty sure my next guest is going to side with me on this. I'm pretty sure he'll be watching Love Island, and if he doesn't come through, he can go back to the university he's just come from.
Wherever he's coming from.
Oh,
Henry, how you doing?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you. No, I'll back you. I'm also excited for Love Island. I wasn't sure if you were going to go to Ali or not, but I don't quite think it's your cup of tea, Ali, when you come up next. But yeah, no, welcome. Good to be back. Thank you for that, Dal.
No problem.
We'll take some questions.
We also have one of our recent grads. We've got Ali.
Hi, Dal. Hi, everybody. Not my cup of tea, I'm afraid. I'm not going to be joining that bandwagon. Sorry.
Yes, Ali.
You lot are very, very disappointed.
It's not my thing, I'm afraid.
Love a bit of trash TV, but
it just makes the time go by, especially when they've cancelled the soaps. You know, EastEnders is only running once or twice a week. Corrie's not really on.
You don't watch.
This is just from what my mum's told me.
Okay. Yeah, all right.
It makes it any better. I'll join you on the football side of things. I'm looking forward to that. There you go.
Well done. Okay, and last but not least, I think Alice has finally joined us. Alice, are you there?
Hello. Yes, sorry about that. I'm back. I'm here.
How are you doing this morning, Alice?
I'm good. I was just writing emails and doing things, so got a bit carried away.
Busy
Excellent.
bee.
Thank you so much. So thank you to everyone for joining us this morning. Mohammed is saying good morning from Facebook. So good morning back to you, Mohammed. So very quickly, just going to go through for those that have just joined our live stream what we're going to be talking about. The first thing that we want to have a look at is motives for university. Now, this might be very interesting for you guys because I know you guys are at the point now where you're deciding, do I go to university? Should I not go to university? I know a lot of you have got offers that you might not have already accepted. So what we're going to do is look back on our own motives to see if you guys can sort of relate. If you have any questions that you'd like us to answer, please do get in touch with us via YouTube, get in touch with us via Facebook. So guys, the first question that I want to ask you guys is the most obvious one. What was your motive for coming to university? So who wants to start us off?
Oh gosh, big question.
Not all at once, guys. What was your motive for coming to university?
Alice has volunteered.
Yeah, I'll
Thank
go.
you so much.
So I lived in like quite a small town in South Yorkshire. So I kind of wanted to get out there and learn some like new things, living a different place as well. So that's why I decided to go to university. And at my school, we didn't offer things like media as a subject. So I didn't really know anything about it. So that's why, again, I also came to university because they had a subject that I wasn't able to learn back at the school I already was at. So yeah, that's why I decided to go to uni.
Thank you so much, Alice. Anyone else?
I think conversely,
You've all got to answer, so I'm just going to put the camera on you in a second.
Yeah.
So
I think conversely to that, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. I don't think university was the top of my sort of, here's the list of things I want to do next. But I'd sort of finished college. I'd gone back and done some extra courses because I didn't really know what to do. I was working sort of, ended up working full time as like an assistant manager for a shop for a little bit. And I was like, okay, what do I do next? So I thought I'll go to university was like the thing that quite a lot of my friends did. So I was like, I'll jump on that. And I jumped on it sort of a couple of years after them. And yeah, I loved it. And I think I loved it not just for the course, but for the other experiences that I had at university. The course was fine. I did a computer science degree. But I think what I took from it was all the other things that I got from it. So the experiences that I had with things like the Media Society, which I know Alice is part of, so I won't steal her thunder too much on that. And the experiences I got to go on like global trips and meet lots of people. So for me, initially, it was just the kind of thing that everybody sort of did at that point, and my parents were sort of pushing me in that direction, which is fine, and there's no kind of problem with that. But I didn't really have a steer on it. So as long as you're doing something that you're all going to enjoy, and as long as you're going to do something that you think is going to sort of help you and support you, yeah, definitely, you don't have to have that sort of focused steer on going to university necessarily.
absolutely. I'm just going to add on to that. When it was myself, I didn't really want to go to university per se. All I knew was that I didn't want to go into work. So I didn't want to go get myself a Monday to Friday 9-to-5 job. I didn't want to do that. So I just come out of college, had a fantastic time at college, and I heard about all the great things that you could do at university, not in regards to academia, but let's just say the social side. So for me, that really drawn me in to going to university. And similarly to what Ben was saying, a lot of my friends was going and speaking to people who have been to university. One of the things that they was always coming back with was that, you know what, university is such a great experience. It's a one in a lifetime experience, and you get to do stuff that you might not necessarily do. So that was my view on it. Henrik?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm probably quite similar to both yourself and Ben in that sense. So I knew I wanted to go to university, but I wasn't quite sure what I really wanted to study, to be brutally honest. So I decided to go for a business related course, just because, in my opinion, you can sort of take that to most working environments, that kind of thing. And similar situation, all my friends were going to uni. So me personally, we were the last year where fees were at the lower price. So they were 3,300. So there's quite a lot of pressure there to go to uni. I'm not sure if we'll get the opportunity to touch on this a little bit later on as well, but I actually went to an institution. I won't say where because I don't want to sort of slander on their name, but didn't have too much a great time there. So I stayed for 2 years, and then I decided to leave. I worked for a year, and then I actually decided to go to Montfort myself. I'm from Leicester, so it's right on my doorstep. Made sense for me, that kind of thing. So yeah, I mean, it might be opportunity to touch on that in a little bit, but I always wanted to get a degree. It felt like the natural thing to do. I felt like it's what I needed to really sort of get myself into work. And similar to what you said, Dal, I didn't want to go straight into work as well. You know, I wanted the sort of the blend of the social aspect, playing a bit of sport at uni, that kind of thing, and then studying for a degree and, you know, enhancing my employability and that kind of thing. So
thank you, Henry. Oh, a bit of slander there. I'm very tempted to go into it, but you know what? We'll keep it strictly
we'll
professional.
refrain from doing that. Yeah.
You've got to be professional. Faye?
I think we're all quite similar. We all did completely different things at university, but we all perhaps didn't quite know what we wanted to do. We just wanted to learn more skills and, you know, obviously have a good time at university while also learning and finding out, I think, a bit more about ourselves and what we're good at and what we could go into. Just like everybody else, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I just knew that university would give me an extra qualification and something that would open a lot of doors to me. I'm sure Dal can bring up a good analogy there. Keys and locks and everything. But yeah, so I think it was just opening up more opportunities and giving myself a little bit of time, extra time to think about what could be the next step.
Faye, look, I know you're desperate to use my analogy, so you know what? No. You brought it up. I'm going to give you your time now to
I could never
analogy.
do it as well as you do it, and especially the motorway one as well. I think you should bring that one up.
Right, guys, that's giving you something to stay tuned in for. I'm going to bring that in later in the show, so if you want to hear about my wonderful analogy, please do stay tuned. So, Ali, we haven't heard from you yet.
Yeah, I think it's the same thing again, really. It was sort of for me, I always knew I wanted to go to university. I didn't necessarily know what I wanted to do. And I think sometimes, you know, when you're in that situation of, you know, all of this opportunities and lots of different choices, it can be difficult to kind of filter through all of that. So I think it's really important that, you know, you consider all of the options, keep everything open as well, so that you're not you know, allowing yourself to just focus on one place or just saying, oh, I'm just going to go to that one place because I'm maybe from that city or anything like that. I think it's really important that you kind of consider everything wholly.
Absolutely. Here's a question for you guys. Did you lot ever have a career in mind that you wanted to do? So Faye say no. Henry, no.
No, not
Alice?
really.
So I'm the only person who had a career in mind when I went to university. See, I wanted to be a PE teacher at high school. So I really loved PE when I was at secondary school. So you know what, when I went to university, one of the first things the only thing that I had in my mind was, you know what, I'm going to become a PE teacher at high school. Went and done it as part of my university experience, and I absolutely hated it. But you know what? I cannot.
Wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, I cannot. What I realised was that I thought I had it in abundance was that I don't have a lot of patience. So I had to do some work experience, and yeah, 7 year 8 year 9s. Let's just say I really, really respect our secondary high school teachers, because you are made out of something different that I don't believe I am, if I'm being completely honest. But so
yeah, I was sort of the same, I think. No, I was sort of the same. Like I said, I was working in a shop between sort of college and stuff. So I was sort of like, well, I don't really know what to do. And I did IT. I'd sort of worked part-time in IT. I did my placement at university in IT. So I was just sort of, because I was always the quote unquote sort of good at IT. You know, I always fixed my mum's laptop for her or whatever. That was kind of the steer I took. But then I got into my degree and I got to sort of second and third year. I was like, I am sick of this. I've done this for so long. I've done this so much inside of uni, outside of uni. I was like, that's where these sort of transferable skills come from. And a lot of the IT stuff I learned at university has been really useful in stuff that I've done since. But I just couldn't imagine that being my whole focus. So sometimes if you are looking at those degrees and thinking of going to university, look at the sort of wider skills that you can get from it, because you do learn an awful lot outside of that you can bring to other areas. Just because you're going down the route of business, as Henrik said, or just because you're going down the route of, you know, sports psychology or IT, doesn't mean that you necessarily are forced to work in that for the rest of your life. Have a look at other stuff that you can get involved in, because that can obviously make other areas come to light as you go through.
Absolutely. I just want to pick up on that now. So we all work in the same team, so we all do the similar sort of jobs, but we all have different academic backgrounds. So I'll start off. I have a sport sociology background. Faye? My
nephew's crying in the background. Modern foreign languages, totally forgot that. It was so long ago.
So Ben?
Sorry, I forgot it was sports sociology, Dal. I said psychology. I did essentially a computer science degree with a sort of specialism in cybersecurity.
Is that why you was crying this morning?
A little bit, yeah. Absolutely sobbing because my laptop balanced on a box of potatoes. Yeah.
Alice?
So I just finished a degree in media production, like filming.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, that's it.
I did read it, sorry.
Yeah, so mine was in business and marketing. So yeah.
And Henrik?
Human resource management.
Oh, really hell.
Yeah.
Sounds
Very random, but yeah.
Sounds very. I didn't have you down as a HR type of person, to be fair.
Look, I had the mindset that all major companies have got very large HR teams, and I thought, you know, there's a lot of transferable stuff there, and if, you know, I'm not quite sure what I figure out what I want to do, there'll probably be some route into HR where there'll be progression and that kind of thing. So, but yeah, same again. Like a lot of the business courses, for instance, are very interchangeable. Whether it's like business management, what Ali did, or marketing, or finance, they're all sort of along similar lines anyway. So, yeah, that was my thought process. Yeah.
Okay, so our viewers right now have probably got a benefit in mind about what they will get out of coming to university. So, can we cast our mind back a couple of years for some cases, decades for others? I won't mention any names in particular. Can we ever think around what our
singular decades? Singular.
I've completely lost my trail of
At least
thought.
Jamie's not here, eh?
Yeah, God, that would be decades. So, what was the belief or the benefit that you guys had in mind that you'll get out of most by coming to university? So, what was that one thing that you thought, you know what, this is the thing that's going to develop me the most? This is why I want to go. It could be academic related, it could be socially related, it could be in regards to employability. So what was the main benefit that you guys saw from choosing to go to university and making the decisions that you guys made?
Stop picking on people.
I think mine was definitely more kind of personal. Mine was about moving. I moved away from home. I moved nearly 3 hours away from home. And it was just living on my own, meeting new people and living with new people. And just spending 3 years finding out what I was good at, what I was absolutely rubbish at, and just buying myself a little bit of time to figure out what I wanted to do. And that strongly, I found that I really, really want to work within education. And I have, since I've graduated, worked within mostly just education. And that's where I found that I really, really enjoyed, going to work and being a part of it. So you have to go and find out what it is that you are, can do that will make you, enjoy going to work in the morning. So for me, it was very much that kind of aspect of finding out a little bit more about myself. Obviously, I did enjoy some of my classes and, some of my lectures and some of the work and things that I learned. But for me, it was definitely more figuring out, where my career path might lead to.
Cool.
I think mine was similar. I think going along with that, I think I went because I wanted, so in some ways I wanted the independence. I wanted to move out and I wanted to experience that next step in my life as much as anything. So university was the sort of stepping stone towards that. Moving into accommodation and, meeting lots of new people, getting lots of new experiences, being able to kind of there's obviously a big element of the social aspect that comes with it as well, which is always good fun, you know, joining lots of societies and getting involved with stuff. This might segue really nicely into something that Alice might talk about in a second, so I will mention it. So I was part of the media society that I mentioned. So over the sort of 2 years of my time at university, I took over the university newspaper as it was at the time, and we turned it into a magazine, and we published it onto campus, and it's still being printed to this day, or would be if obviously we weren't in lockdown. And I also had a radio show, which was brilliant, and I did that for 2 years, once a week, and that was just so much fun. So being able to do stuff like that just adds on to that experiences. And again, different people will have different interests. So when you're looking at university, and you're sort of making those final decisions, have a look at what societies you can join or sports teams. I'll let Henrik talk about sports teams because, again, I know bugger all about those. But it's good to just kind of see what other stuff you can get involved in, because very often that is what is going to be your sort of, when you look back on university, for me, those were my highlights. So those are the things that I look back on, and those are the things that I think, yeah, that's where my sort of university experience peaked. Wasn't sitting in a lecture, but it was being involved in all those societies and, again, working on lots of different projects with people and all that kind of good stuff.
Thank you so much for that, Ben. Alice, I'm sure you would probably want to add on to that.
Yeah, so mine was kind of, it was personal as much as sort of like other sort of experience. So I'm the youngest person in my family. I'm very used to having things done for me. So I really wanted to have that sort of independence and learn just to look after myself, basically, which is something I think I've definitely learned a lot over the last 3 years. And on top of that, as Ben was saying about the media society, I've gotten so much experience in this field that I want to be a part of. I learned so much about filming, about being in radio, writing for the magazine and designing. I've also been able to do work for BBC Radio Leicester because of being a part of that society, which has been really, really cool. And I can now put that sort of things on my CV. And when I'm applying for jobs, it makes you stand out a bit more than a lot of people that do have a degree. If you're doing something extra with that, that's something I really wanted, was to stand out.
All right, Alice, you don't have to one up me. Yeah, I met the guy from JLS, and
Henrik?
Yeah, I mean, I think as Ben touched on, like sport for me has always been a massive part of my life, and I play rugby. When I joined De Montfort, you know, I joined the men's rugby team, and I never had ambitions really of becoming sort of president of the club or chairman of the club one day. But in my final year, I was lucky enough to be elected as chairman, and you know, having to organise 100 rowdy lads, it takes a little bit of skill and stuff like that. And you know, and we had a really good year. We raised a lot of money for charity. We were named Sports Club of the Year at the annual awards and stuff like that. And these are a lot of skills that I actually spoke about when I first started my career. So obviously it's really important that you've got a degree, but you know, when you are applying for things like jobs and you're applying for jobs and that kind of thing, you're interviewing, you're going to want to talk about the skills that you've got as well, and the competencies. And you know, just by being in a sports club and being a member of a committee, you know, it gives you the opportunity to talk about these things. So yeah, for me, massive part of my student journey was dedicated to playing sport, and it took a lot of my time, but it was absolutely worth it, because I think without it, you know, I might not have been as lucky as I was to find employment as quickly. So yeah.
Thanks for that. I think for me personally, the benefit that I saw myself was that, right, I know I didn't want to go into work. I heard a lot about going to university, and similarly to Henrik, I'm also a sports person, so I'm very, very competitive. And I always used to hear about people going to university, saying it's difficult, this, that, the other. I wanted to see that for myself. I know it's very weird, and it's a very weird motive or a reason for wanting to go to university, but I just genuinely wanted to test myself. Like for me, education has always come a bit easy. So I thought, right, let me go to university and let me just see what this is actually about. Am I more than capable enough to go and complete a university degree? So for me, it was just that wanting to challenge myself. So very similarly to Faye, but in a different capacity. I wanted to challenge myself academically to see, right, where is my current knowledge at? Ali, have you got any benefit that you thought you'd get from going to university?
Yeah, I think you've all covered quite a lot of it, but I think one of the things was also the opportunity to travel as well while I was a student, because I think if you can get that out of the way when you're younger, because it's not always as easy when you're older and you're in work, it can be a lot more difficult. And obviously, university does give you the opportunity to have traveling, such as trips where they're from an academic or a voluntary point of view. So I think that really did help to enhance and give me an understanding, I think, really of where I was at and where I was looking to strive to be. So yeah.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Now, just before we move on from that, can I just say as
Yeah.
well, I think, like, similar to what Alice said, if you are someone that's, maybe lived at home all of your sort of young adult life, and then you move away, there's a lot of other skills that you don't think about. Things like learning to budget your finances, especially for someone like myself. I'm a bit of a mummy's boy, I'll be honest, but like learning to cook for myself, do my own cleaning, stuff like that. Like, these are all really important skills that, they might not seem that important to you now, but when you become an adult and you graduate and you're in the real world, I think they are things that do become quite important quite quickly. So just thought I'd add that on there at the end.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Sticking with you, Henrik, Charlie's asked a question, but I think they forgot your name on the end of it. Is there a Ariana Grande Society at the Montfort University?
Oh God, you know what? To be honest, I don't think there is. But the good thing about societies is if you've got yourself and you just need 4 of your other mates, you can go to the Students' Union. You can propose that you want to set up a new society, and you can do that. So then you can start that society from scratch, and then you can promote that society at things like the Freshers' Fair, and that's where you can get first year, second year, third year students to sign up, and you can grow your society. You can plan all your social stuff. You can. Yeah, so that's not just for Ariana Grande. That's for absolutely any society you want. So there are tons of societies out there, from like the Cocktail Society to the Game of Thrones Society. There's pretty much every sport you can think of, But if there's not one already there out there, you can set one up yourself, which is with your mate. So that's a pretty cool thing. And you go to the Students' Union, and they can help set that up for you, give you a little bit of funding, and that kind of thing. So.
Well, there you have it, Charlie. There's your reason to come to university, to set up our very own Ariana Grande Society. So make sure you accept your application this week. So next question for you guys. So some of our guys have probably got some concerns about coming to university. Can you guys think back to remember what your concerns were about coming up to university, making that transition from coming from a sixth form, coming from a college? So Alice, am I okay to start with you?
Yeah, of course. So there was a couple of things I was quite scared of. I was moving away from home, and that was kind of terrifying because I'd never lived in like such a big city. And as well, like, I was really worried I wasn't going to make any friends. And luckily I managed to. Like, I think something that is important to remember is that there's this idea that you're going to be best friends with your like flatmates at university, and that's not always the case. For example, I didn't really talk to my flatmates. Nothing wrong with it, we just didn't really get on, and that wasn't a big problem for me. I just found friends to like sort of a society or things like that, and that wasn't really a problem in the end. But I think I had this mindset that I was going to be best friends with my flatmates, and I think everyone has that, but just didn't work out for me, and it's not the end of the world. And I think the other thing I was mainly concerned about is the big step from sort of A-levels to university. But something I say to everyone is that if you've done the jump from like GCSE to A-level or BTEC, you can definitely do the A-level to university jump. I think it's a little bit of a smaller gap, and something that I soon realised I could get a hang of when I started.
Absolutely. I don't know about you guys, but when I did my A-levels, I think that was possibly one of the hardest qualifications that I did. So I feel like in terms of what was most academically challenging, I genuinely believe it was A-levels as opposed to going to university and completing degrees at university. What about you guys?
I think the first year kind of settles you into university. A lot of people have moved away from home. It's a very much an adjustment period. You perhaps more independent for making sure you hit those deadlines, getting yourself to all your lectures, getting your work done. So there is a little bit of wiggle room within your first year. A lot of the time, first year for most courses doesn't count towards your overall degree grade, because they're aware that there are, new ways of learning that you have to adjust to. You're jumping into all these other opportunities, being pulled this way and that way, and you're trying to find that balance. So I think I found A levels really quite challenging, but I find that first year of university kind of perhaps wasn't quite as hard. I think there was very much a lot of support available. There's loads of staff in place to support you, kind of pastorally, but also academically. So I think, really check that out and see what support is available at the university that you want to go to.
Cool. Thank you so much
I
for
agree with
that.
that.
Yeah,
I agree with that, because I found when I went into my first year, I was the same. I found A-level was really quite difficult, actually. Got into my first year, and I actually did really well, and I was really pleased with that. And I actually did find the content sort of fairly easy in a lot of ways. But what was really nice about my first year is that there was no sort of assumed prior knowledge for a lot of it. So going into it, I said I did a computer science degree, and one of the biggest things I was worried about is I wasn't very good at computer coding or computer programming. And I'd never really studied it at college, and I'd never really done an awful lot of it beforehand because it just wasn't something I was interested in. And I saw that 2 of my modules were computer programming, so I got really worried. But actually what they did was they sort of went, right, no, it doesn't matter if you've done it before, it doesn't matter if you've learned stuff before, we're just going to teach you all of this information in the first sort of 6 months or so that we can get everybody to the sort of same level, so that everything from that sort of midway through first year into second year, that's all your new stuff. So everybody is on the same level at the same page, and it made it very easy to sort of pick up stuff that other students hadn't sort of covered. So it might be that different students had done slightly different qualifications at college or at sixth form. Some people had done programming at college, but I just didn't have that opportunity. So it just meant that going into that first year, I was very nervous for that first week. So I was like, gosh, I'm not very good at, maths, and I know there's quite a lot of maths involved. But actually, I found the maths quite easy because they taught it in a way that, like I say, just got everybody to that same level. So that was really nice for me.
Cool. What about any concerns that weren't academic related? So does anyone have any other concerns, perhaps in regards to finance, in terms of how you're going to cope with moving away? Or
I have an issue with the fact that my student finance unfortunately didn't even cover my entire accommodation. That's just how it worked out. Luckily, my parents were able to help me a little bit, but it was just finding a job. I was kind of concerned by that. I came to Leicester about a month or 2 before university even started to try and get my CV out, try and get a job. Luckily, I became a student ambassador not long afterwards in my second year. So that was really helpful for me. It meant that I could feel more sort of self-sufficient and look after myself and finance myself. I think that that's something that I was really concerned at. So I was like, look at jobs within the university as well as outside of it, because they're really good opportunities.
cool. Thank you so much for that. Ali, Henrik, anything else you guys want to add?
I think, yes, sort of same thing what everyone's really covered. But I think the most concern for me was from a financial point of view in terms of budgeting, because I wasn't, when you're young, you're not really, you don't really look at it as like, I need to budget for this or that. You're not really in that mindset yet. So I think it was a transition of starting to think like that. And I think to touch upon what Alice said, that getting a part-time job as a student ambassador on campus where it's flexible work and it fits around your studies means that you're able to then look after yourself from a financial standpoint and not have to worry about being in debt or anything like that as well. So I think that's really important.
Absolutely. Henrik, anything else?
Yeah, I mean, no, I think it's, for me personally, it was more, so I moved out in my first year. I lived in Halls. I mean, I didn't move too far, even an hour down the road from where my parents live, my hometown. But I think just being away from my parents for the first time, really, going into halls and, sort of living with people that you've never met before. And then a lot of pressure of, hoping they're going to be like-minded individuals, that you'll get on with them and stuff. Like, I had a really good time. They're some great friends. So, I was quite lucky in that sense. But other things, just like, doing your washing, cooking, that sort of stuff, like, they weren't really things that I did before I moved, but soon, a couple of weeks after living on your own, you tend to become a little bit of an expert on these things. So yeah, not too bad in the end.
Pot noodles don't count, Henrik.
Yeah, true. Lots of bread.
Okay, so the question on the lips of most students who are probably coming to university is, what is university going to be like in September/October 2020? Ben, are you okay to shed some wisdom on this?
I can certainly give it a go. I think the biggest thing at the minute is that we're still in those sort of planning stages for what things are going to look like. You know, we're not. Things will change between now and September. So obviously take anything that I sort of say with that sort of little bit of grain of salt in regards to that. But there's been a lot of conversations around this sort of blended learning style. So a lot of the sort of big lectures and the big talks that you would have traditionally had in those sort of big lecture theatres, they will be moving to online, because obviously we can't risk having, 300 people in the same room. But it also allows us to use those big learning spaces to do those sort of smaller classroom space into sort of smaller classroom sessions and just have people spread out. So a lot of the stuff that's going to require you to be on campus for those sort of more practical subjects, we're still looking at be able to do those. So a lot of you that are going to be thinking of doing those sort of science and lab-based subjects, or maybe something down the route of engineering, something that's going to require you to be quite practical, we're looking at ways of being able to make those sessions still run so that you are able to get that more sort of technical side to the learning. But a lot of that sort of online stuff and the lecture-based stuff is moving online, and I don't think that's to any particular detriment to you guys. I know I can speak from experience that looking at lectures, because there's so many people in the room, there's not many that feel quite confident enough to stick their hand up in the middle of a lecture and ask a question. They'll tend to email their tutors afterwards, because it's quite overwhelming being in those lecture spaces with, as I say, 300 people. So actually moving online is really not going to make too much of a difference from that perspective. I can't, that sort of interaction with your tutors and with your academics. So you'll still have the ability to speak to those academics and speak to those lecturers about the topics. It will just obviously be, again, in a digital format. So there'll be ways of being able to contact them and email them that way. So you'll find that a lot of the big sort of conversations and the big lectures will take place online through potentially platforms like YouTube. Again, that's still being discussed. But what we're hoping to do is make sure that the campus itself is still at least somewhat busy, is still a little bit lively and functional, but safe, so that everybody is going to be safe moving around on campus. We're still looking at how we're going to make accommodation function. Hopefully that will be something that you can still experience. Obviously we've talked a bit about moving away from home, and that is a big part of the university experience. So we don't want you to lose aspects like that just because we're obviously going through this sort of strange time. So keep an eye on the comms that are coming out if you are looking to apply, because there is going to be a lot more messaging around that as government guidelines sort of change over the next few months. We're hoping that we can still create a fantastic experience for you on campus, and you can still get involved in, societies and, maybe sports teams. You can still move into accommodation, you can still make friends, and you can still have that fantastic university experience. But we just want to make sure that it is safe, is as safe as possible, given, again, the current global climate. So if you are thinking about that and you are worried about those sort of sides of things, a lot of the courses still require those sort of hand-on practical aspects, so we can't remove those, and a lot of those we can't move online. So there still will be the ability to go into those labs and learn those skills. It's just that other things will be moved online just to avoid those big crowds in those lecture spaces.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that, Ben. Yeah, Alice?
Just as someone that finished her final year, online at the moment, I had loads of support from my lecturers. It was kind of amazing to see the transition that is that they were so committed and very willing to just help all the time, and they were very understanding as well. I do a practical subject, and at this point they couldn't change how my assessments were going to work or anything like that. So they were very supportive and understanding that things weren't going to be exactly the same as they had been before. So the fact that they've got this bit of extra time to make it even better is great. I think there's nothing really to worry about.
She totally didn't get paid to say that at all. I'm going to throw that out there. One thing that I just want to say, in the current climate that we find ourselves in, is that you guys are at a very tricky point within your careers. You're thinking about, right, do I go to university or should I try and jump into the world of employability? Given the current situation that we're facing, we're not too sure how the world of employability is going to react. Now, I've got a friend who works in recruitment, and he's telling me that most companies aren't recruiting as much as what they would have done in previous years. So if you think about all the students that are going to be going into the world of employability right now, the competition for those job roles are just going to get higher. You come to university, you study a 3-year degree, do a postgrad in there, make it 4 years. You know, hopefully by then the employability market should have stabilized somewhat, and your prospects of getting that job afterwards arguably could be in a more better position. So that's just my stance on entry into 2020 this year. So now that we're there, let's just say all of our wonderful students have accepted they're coming to university. Guys, can you think about your most memorable time at university? What was the one that stood out the most for you? To give you some time to think about it, I'll go first, because I've had time to have a look and have a think myself, so I knew what I was going to ask, so I don't want to put you guys on the spot. My one was the ability to travel. My team know that I'm an absolute scrounger, so I try and save money wherever I possibly can. So for me, what I did when I went to university was I worked quite a bit. So I was very fortunate that the job that I was in paid me more than enough to survive. So I didn't really need to rely on my student finance. So for me going to university, I was getting all of this extra student finance that I didn't really need to spend on accommodation, on bills, on whatever, because I'll just sleep out wherever, go and crash at a friend's house or whatever. So what I did with that student finance then was I traveled. So I went and saw quite a lot during my first 3 years at university, and being able to have that academic education, being able to develop and work on these transferable skills, as well as achieve a lifelong ambition for myself of being able to go see the world, made my whole time very enjoyable at university. Whilst I'm on the topic, Angelo has asked this question around how many hours a week I should work whilst I'm in university. And this is different, and I'm going to throw it out to the team in a second. But for me, what I did was I was at university Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Then I used to work Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and that looked around 24, 25 hours. To some people, that is a lot, but my course required less time. And I feel like one of my biggest pros as a person is I'm very organized. So I was able to manage my time pretty well. But that is not universal. It's not going to be the case for everyone. So I'm going to bring my team in now. So guys, can you remember your work academic split? How did you guys manage that? You managed it at all?
So I didn't, unlike other people in the stream, I didn't work whilst I was actually in term. So I waited until outside of term. So Christmas holidays, Easter holidays, I used to go back home, I used to work, and the summer as well. Remember, you've got about 4 months off during summer. So yes, it's off and you should probably be preparing for the next year. But you're also not in class, you're not at university. So you can work full time for those months if you want to. And that's what I did, so that I could ensure that I had enough kind of time to throw myself into my work, into my classes, but also into student life as well. So yeah, people go about it different ways. Again, like Alice, my student maintenance loan pretty much just covered my accommodation. So I did need extra to live on. Again, working in the summer holidays, but also having a look at student finance options. So I got, as part of my student bank account, an overdraft. So if I struggled to make ends meet, hadn't quite received the next installment of my maintenance loan yet, I could dip into my student overdraft, which is in the minus, but it's interest-free whilst at university. So that is something that can be somewhat of a safety net whilst at university, so you don't have too many nightmares worrying about how you're going to be afforded to be at university. So there are some options. Even at universities, there are some hardship funds available for students. You just have to make sure that you're not like Ben buying all the latest technology, latest iPhone, PlayStation, whatever it might be. You've got to genuinely show financial hardship. Sorry, Ben.
Would I do that? Did I do that? Sounds like something I would do, actually. I think mine was I actually did work while I was at university. So one of the reasons I stayed in Leicester was because I was working quite a lot of hours for a Blockbuster, which I guarantee not many people have even heard of at this stage.
That's a throwback.
It's an absolute throwback. Apart from this, it was the best job I ever had working for a Blockbuster. Free films all day. It was a really good job. I loved it, and I stuck around there for a bit. But in my first year, I was made redundant because Blockbuster went bust. So I had to look at alternative work. So between university, I think it was my first and second year, I went and worked for 3 months in a timber yard. Not working on the timber, I was actually doing their IT, and that was my sort of summer placement. So I got quite a lot of money from that saved me up. And then when I got into my sort of second and third year, when I was in the Media Society, I was actually paid to look after the magazine. So I was actually paid as the sort of lead editor. We were only paid 10 hours a week, but it was really good because those 10 hours could be whenever I liked. So it just meant that I had 10 hours worth of work that I could just obviously keep to one side, use for things like my social life and my food and that sort of thing. And like I say, because it was so flexible around my studies and around my coursework and around my lectures and things, that was a really, really handy job to have. And I suppose it was very similar to the student ambassadors in terms of how flexibility it could be. So that was really good for me from the sort of job side of things. But I'd got quite a bit of money sort of saved up before I went to university anyway, because of the work that I was doing. So I was able to sort of make that last until about my third year, and then I had to dip into that overdraft that Faye talked about. Santander, I think, still do the student overdrafts, and that is up to £2,000 it was, and it was really, really good for me in my third year because it meant I could just focus on actually just going away and sort of studying and not have to do any sort of extra part-time work. And they also gave me 2 years afterwards to actually pay the overdraft back. It actually only took me about 3 or 4 months, but at least it gave me that flexibility at the end after I finished as well.
Ben getting his paid sponsorship in there for Santander.
Every time I say it, I get 30 quid. That's not true, by the way.
Okay, so Ali, Henrik, Alice?
Yeah, so I worked as a student ambassador for pretty much most of my time at university. From January of my first year, I worked every single open day. I've worked every single open day since then. And that's really, really good money because you're getting paid around, I think it's around £10 an hour. And you work from around 8 o'clock in the morning till around 3:30, 4 o'clock-ish. And because it's on a weekend, it's not really interfering with your studies. Like most ambassador jobs, a lot of them are throughout the week, but you can choose which ones you get and apply for certain ones. So you can only go for the ones that possibly are not interrupting your studies and not during your contact hours. So for example, this year I had one that was a regular job. It was for interview days, and I worked every Wednesday from 7:15 in the morning till around midday. And that was really good because it was a stable amount of money I was getting each week. But yeah, you could really pick and choose your hours. That's really good as well that I worked a lot in the summer. So I used to work for a summer camp as a team leader. There's loads of those jobs everywhere. I think they have them in Leicester as well. And then I started working for inquiries as well, sort of during the summer full time.
Thank you so much for that. Anyone else got anything to add before we move on?
Yeah, for me working, it was a little bit different. And I don't recommend it to everybody. On a Wednesday, I remember used to get Wednesdays off because that's when we played sport. And in the morning, in my first year, I was a personal trainer. So I used to start on a Wednesday at 5 a.m. and then work until 11 o'clock. And then my other shift would be on a Saturday. And then remember in my final year, I had a crewing job. So, these companies that set up gigs and they set up the staging and the lighting and all that. I used to do that. And a lot of that work was actually through the night. So, if I had a Wednesday or a Thursday where my lectures didn't start till in the afternoon, and I knew maybe the night before I could work through the night and then catch up on my sleep. But that's how I got around working without it impacting my studies too much. I don't recommend it for everyone, unless you can get up quite early in the morning or you can stay up quite late. You can burn out pretty easily. But it's another option, and the money's really good. So, but yeah, that's what I decided to do.
Cheers, Henrik. Am I okay to move on? Adi, you got anything else you want to add?
Just really that. I think from a memorable standpoint, I think it was the trips, so the academic and voluntary trips that I got to go on. I think they were sort of life-changing trips where normally I wouldn't have been able to afford to go on them, but because they were subsidized by the university, it meant that it was a lot more cheaper for me. And I think just adding on from what everybody else has said really is that everything really counts when you're doing any kind of work experience or anything. You can earn that little bit extra that can make the difference really, and mean that you're not kind of struggling from a financial point of view.
Thank you, Ali. See, Ali's very good. He's brought me back to my topic of memorable. So I went off on a tangent there. I don't know if you guys had noticed, but Ali was on the ball. So, Faye, what was your most memorable moment at university? Mike?
I think for me, gosh, there's too many. It was just such a different experience, and the opportunities that were available that I don't think that I would have known how to go about without the support of the university. So, for example, as part of my course, I got to study abroad, in 2 different countries. So 6 months in Spain and 6 months in Germany. And I think I wouldn't have the confidence to have been able to do that without the support of the university helping me to set things up. And by doing that, I gained again those skills like confidence and adaptability. So I think probably just generally opportunities. Have a look at what the university offers. And like Dal, I love to travel. And if you are thinking about coming to DMU, we do have a fantastic scheme called DMU Global, and they have pots of money available for you, travel grants, essentially free pots of money to help you to be able to afford these. Because you might think, I'm a student, how can I afford these? But we really, really do heavily subsidize them. And they are, you can either do it as a volunteering kind of project. You could go as part of your course and learn something more about your course abroad. And I think some people in this group actually have managed to do some of these trips abroad as part of DMU Global. So find out, what can you do? Are you the kind of person who maybe hasn't been on a plane? And that sounds quite scary, but push yourself. And you might realize, that you are much more confident than you think you are. And it really gives you something to talk about in interviews, about what you've done outside your studies. So just have a look for those, sorry, bit of a tangent for my favourite memory. But I think it is the travel opportunities that I had that really made my university experience.
Cool, yeah. Anyone, whilst we're on it, because we love tangents so much, who went on a DMU global trip, and where did you go? Alice, Ben?
I went to New York.
Okay.
I went to Tokyo in Japan, and I got to look at things like Fuji TV and like the Sony Explorer Center as part of media production. And we had a free day, me and my friend as well. So we decided to go to Disneyland Tokyo, which is something I would never have been able to afford without DMU. Because it was outside of Europe, they gave us around £400 towards the trip. So my flights and hotel was about $800. So I had to save up around £400, and that was pretty cheap to go to Tokyo for a week. So yeah.
Excellent.
Ben, I love how Ben said he went to New York, and it sounded like the least exciting thing he's ever done.
Sorry.
Went to New York.
Sorry. It was very good. I enjoyed it.
Alice came with all the enthusiasm for Tokyo. And then this ain't just going around the corner or going down to the other end of the country. Ali, what about yourself? Did you say you went on one as well? Or?
Yeah, so yeah, same as Ben, New York, and also the Gambia as well. So that was a voluntary trip. So that was an eye-opening experience.
I bet it was, absolutely. So we've got some questions now in the comments regarding actual university life. Before we get on to that, can somebody just very quickly describe the difference between seminars and lectures?
Do you want me to?
Go for Ali.
So I think the main real difference really is obviously lectures are big scale ones where it's a lot more informal, I think, whereas seminars and tutorials do allow you to have a more formal chat with not only your peers but also with your tutors and your lecturers. And I think Ben touched upon that earlier on, that sometimes when you're in a big lecture theatre with you know, sometimes 80, 100 students, it's quite daunting to put your hand up and be just like, you know, asking anything because you're a bit shy or that sort of thing. So I think it's really important that we have these seminars and tutorials where you can actually get into the topics that are being discussed in the lectures in particular.
Thank you so much for that, Ali. So one of the questions that we've had come through is from Bella. How do you cope with burnout? Not that one. How do you cope with burnout, especially in a creative subject? So what would your tips be to Bella?
Alice probably did the most creative subject out of all of us.
Yeah. So what's funny about my course is that it was media production, but it was actually a Bachelor of Science, not Bachelor of Arts, which was a bit different to the universities. But as much as I was learning about the technical stuff, if I didn't have any creative ideas of what to make, then I couldn't make anything. And I think that's probably the hardest thing, is when you know how to do things, but you're not sure what it is you want to do it about. And I think the best way to do that is to just talk to other creative people, especially people on your course. Just talk to them about what they're doing. Think about things that interest you, and I think that's just the best way. You don't think it, because you can go for weeks and weeks thinking about this project and you don't know where to start because you don't know what to talk about or what to do it on. So I had to do some like title sequences, and I spent weeks not knowing what to even do, make a title sequence on, and suddenly it'll just sort of hit you. So I think spending time with creative people and just thinking about things that interest you, because if you don't find it interesting, you're definitely going to get burnt out because you're not going to want to keep doing it.
I think just more generally now, just open that question up a bit more generalist, pull out the creative subject part. How did we cope with not being burnt out from trying to manage going to work, manage having a social life, manage doing all your academic work on time? Do you guys have any top tips that you'd like to share with our audience around some of the things that you guys did to avoid getting burnt out? Looks like we're a very selfish bunch here and we don't want to share absolutely
I'm
nothing.
not sure I did cope, to be honest.
I think I'm a massive list maker. I like to set all my deadlines in and kind of have a big schedule of what my week will look like, where I should dedicate time to something particularly, where I should be able to say, okay, you've done this amount of time on it, you need to move on and go on to the next thing, or you need to have a night off and be able to do this. So I think it's about, actually, for me, what really helps is having a schedule where you actually can plan the whole week and even the next week, depending how prepared you are. But if you are struggling, you have a personal tutor, have a chat with them, and they can give you some advice as well.
Absolutely. Anyone else? Any other tactics that you guys would have used to avoid getting burnt out at uni?
I think socially. Oh, sorry, Ali, go on.
Yeah, sorry. I think for me, it's trying to find distractions or, something else to focus on. So you almost bring your focus back to the task in hand. I think sometimes, things like playing sports or, anything that you can see as almost like an escape from everyday sort of study or work is a bonus, because that way you're going to be able to focus yourself, like I said, on what you're looking at doing or what you're currently working on from a project point of view.
Absolutely, thank you so much. So what I'm going to do now, we've had a question come in the chat from, let me try and find it, from Mohammed, which brings me on very nicely to the latter end of our stream. How do we feel about life after graduation? Did we really achieve our goals? Did the Montfort University help our dreams come true? So, guys, quick question for you lot. So, Alice, I know this doesn't technically apply to you as you're still in the process of graduating. For us that have graduated, do you think, honestly, it has been worthwhile?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think none of us would be doing the job that we have now if we didn't have a degree, if we hadn't been to university. Mm-hmm. So perhaps where your analogy can come in, Del.
Yeah, okay, so cheers, Faye. Thank you so much for that. I know you've all been waiting, and I've made you wait now 59 minutes, 57 seconds to hear it. But basically the wonderful analogy that Faye's been referring to, and now I'm going to say it's not going to be that great at whatsoever. But if we look at all of us now in this chat, if we all would have tried to go into the world of employability and our teachers would have turned around and gave us a key and says, right, let's go and see how many doors open in regards to employability, just try and picture that at the moment. Now we go to university, we complete our university degree, and I'm going to give you now an extra key. How many more doors will open for you in regards to employability? And you can take that one step further. So if you want to study a postgraduate degree, again, how much more employability opportunities will be open and available to you? So the best way I look at university life and looking back on this whole practice, would I be able to have done the roles that I've done leading up to this one without having a university degree? And the answer would have been no. Would I be the same person I am today in terms of my character, in terms of my being? And again, I think the answer would have been no if I didn't go to university. So it's a lot more than just the academic development. The social development as well for me has been absolutely fantastic as well, and it's really developed me as a character. Guys, how did I do?
Well worth the wait.
Was
That's
it?
the first time I've heard that. I like it.
See, Henry, that's the one that you're going to be using all the time now.
I know, I wrote it down already.
So, anything else you guys would like to add before we wrap up? Very quickly now, just quick 1, possibly 2-word answers. If you had to sum it up in 1 word, what is the biggest skill university has given you, either through graduating or post-graduating? So what is the biggest skill that you have developed yourself personally?
Communication.
Are we ready? Oh, Ben, that's an absolute cop out. No. We're not accepting communication. No, we're going to take that one out of the act. We're going to go again.
Now I've really got to think.
How about just generally, you find yourself in lots of different situations. So am I allowed adaptability? Is that not one? Thank you, Dal. That's very kind of you.
Adaptability.
It's like now we are changing the way that we speak with students and speak to prospective students and get that kind of information across. So I think university prepared me for this kind of thing, for having to do things that sometimes are outside your comfort zone. You have to sometimes work as a team. You have to do group presentations in front of the class sometimes. So sometimes things are really scary, but once you do it, it sets you up for the next time. So that would be mine.
So we have adaptability.
I wouldn't say it's not skill, but I'd say confidence.
Okay. I'm on the border with that one, Henry.
Similar to sort of like what Faye was saying, like, being able to stand in front of a group and present. You might have to do that on a day-to-day with your work, that kind of thing. Us guys here being able to present to audiences through a live stream. This is confidence that we'd have gained. Being a student and that kind of thing. So not skill, but
a quality.
Competency, maybe. A quality, yeah.
I'll accept that, Henrik. I like you. It's all right. I didn't like Ben's. That's why I wanted to put him on the spot a little bit.
You're so rude to me.
Alice?
I think I'm going to go with fast learner. It sounds a bit weird. I didn't know anything about so many things before I came to university. And when I started my 3rd year, we didn't have someone to basically do some live streaming stuff for our media society. And in a couple of months, I managed to learn like loads of different things about computers and live streaming software that I never thought I would know. And I think now I could very confidently go into a job and be like, I don't know anything about this, but I'll learn and pick it up quite quickly.
Absolutely. Ali?
I think time management really for me, because I was always, I think I was that one person that never really stuck to a schedule. I think I was the opposite of Faye, really, to be fair. She's quite has all of her tasks set out, whereas me, I'm just kind of wing it on the day sort of thing. Really, so yeah, I think time management was a big one for me.
I was going to say, after working with you for a couple of years, Ali, I'd probably say time management was probably one of your biggest strengths. Anything you ask Ali to do, I'm sure the rest of the guys will agree with me here. It's done there and then, before you even finish asking him what he needs to do. So you can see that you can see that skill has absolutely come through.
You're welcome.
Ben?
Oh,
I can
mate, I
can
don't
see
know.
the stress in your face.
I don't know. Sorry, I've got 2 windows open.
One being Google.
Call it what you, yeah, one of them's Google. Ben's top skills. Call it what you will, but I think genuinely being able to, well, from going from the lockdown situation, but also coming into a job that I knew very little about, and then being asked to stand up in front of a load of students. I suppose it's very similar to Henrik's in that regard, in terms of, you know, we were asked to do stuff that we weren't necessarily trained for, but we came into this role because we were all very good communicators, and we were able to adapt that communication skill to different people. And a lot of that for me did come from university through doing different tasks, doing different coursework, but also that, again, that media society I talked about, being able to present on radio. But I was also training quite a lot of students to do different things with the magazine. So, you know, learning how to edit, learning how to write. So even before I was doing this job, I was standing in front of groups of people and doing those sorts of presentations. So I genuinely do stand by, actually, communication skills for me was something that I really developed at university, and is for me one of those things that I think if I was to go to a job interview, that's the thing that I would hopefully would be one of those things that would stand out for me. So yeah, I am kind of sticking with it, but hopefully I've justified it a little bit.
Ben, you've just given me an elaborate answer to communication. You haven't given me a new skill. You could have said that to me a couple of minutes ago.
I did, and you didn't accept it.
I'll accept it this time. Thank you so much for that, Ben. Thank you so much for that, guys. I'm just going to quickly wrap up now with our end credits. So we've had a lot of questions come in regarding specific student inquiries, and what I want to do is refer you to our contact information. So if you see in the comment section, you will see these links have already been posted for you. If you want to discuss, so I think it was Lysantha, my apologies if I've said your name incorrectly, and also Guggendeep. So if you guys want to get in touch with us using the link below, we'll be able to have a look into your inquiry, and we'll be able to provide more information on it. We have a lot more live streams coming up, so please do feel free to check out the website to see when you'll see our guys on your YouTube and Facebook pages again. And also we have a open day coming up, so for you guys who want to quickly have another look at our university before you make your decisions, then that's absolutely fantastic. Faye, can I just ask you one last question before we do go in regards to what students must do next?
Yeah, so if anyone on the stream is holding an offer with any universities, you haven't quite made your firm or your insurance choice yet, you will more than likely have until this Thursday, so the 18th of June, to firm up your offer. So to make an firm and insurance choice. So check your offer letter, see what deadline is on there or what is on UCAS as well. So log on to your UCAS track so that you can firm up those offers. If you don't do it by the deadline, essentially what will happen is that all your offers will no longer be in place. So if you need to have a chat with any universities, as Dal mentioned, we've got some details there and ways in which you can contact us, have a chat with us. Even if you log on, you can see our WhatsApp number on there as well. So lots of different ways that you can contact us in ways that you feel comfortable to help you make what is a very, very important decision.
Thank you so much for that, Faye. Anything else before we disappear and enjoy this nice-ish weather?
Yeah, that's all right.
No? Cool. So it's goodbye from me, and thank you so much for tuning in with us today.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you very much. See you at the next one.